Charles, this is a classic title today. No Country for Old Men. I hope people got it. I think they did.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think this is yet another example of Jason and Charles forgetting that we're actually much older than being in third grade and just doing whatever we want to do with the titles. But I do think it's this definitely belongs in the top 10. Hats off to the art department.
Thank you. What do you call this? Like pictogram or something, I guess, where we're spelling a word with a, you got to spell it out. Country.
I don't recognize the person though. I mean, that picture doesn't look like. Well,
let's talk about this seriously for a moment, because this is supposed to be Hillary Clinton, but it's unclear if this is a plastic surgery mess or a Photoshop mess. It just doesn't look like her, really.
Or a man. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, if you she's a man, baby. But I mean, if you look, one of the funniest things that I saw, and of course I can reveal that I'm 12 hours time different than you, and so basically while you and most of the audience are asleep, I'm awake, and vice versa. And so I regularly patrol the internet when basically you're asleep. And there was this story on Washington Free Beacon that really, I think I said in the email title, I think I said delicious. It was hilarious that, you know, the press packet on Hillary's new book that comes out in September was, in the words of the Washington Free Beacon, was crammed so full of disinformation, lies, and malinformation or whatever, that they refused to publish at the Washington Free Beacon this puff piece about her book. But you know, this is what happens, and I you know, I am aware of one. I'm not going to say who it is, but I'm aware of one very successful hedge fund guy who's made billions for tens of billions for investors and billions for himself over a long period of time. And what he always says is that you should have differing opinions inside the firm. There should be no orthodoxy, that there's only one view, because, you know, nobody's that smart. Things are always changing around the world. And this is a case of what happens with group stink, not group think. That the group around Hillary Clinton would allow this picture to go out, touting a book that talks about how authentic she is, when, as far as I can tell in this picture, there's no part of her body left that's authentic. You know, this picture is crazy. And the first thing it does is it brings back to mind that experience when she took the walk into the pavement on September 11th in 2016, trying to project her strength in the midst at the height of the campaign between Donald Trump and Hillary. She was selling in 2016. Her people were selling experience as against experience and let's say a firm hand on the rudder. That's what she was trying to sell in September 2016, as opposed to Donald Trump, the volatile, vitriolic maniac. She goes to this fucking 9/11 thing and somehow manages to do a face plant into the pavement, and then tries to sell to the public at large the idea that she was walking down the street hours later on Park Avenue South. And at the time, people said, "Is that a body double?" And now with this picture,
than her, right?
It just didn't look exactly like her. She, you know, again, we all, hopefully most of us will have the privilege of aging, and as you age, you know, you don't look as good as you might have looked in the past.
They cut that part out, Charles. Sorry, that video cut out the part. To be fair, I think she was demonstrating the resiliency of the front of her face by landing directly on it. See that?
I know, but I mean, it's just of all the time, that's a case where, you know, somebody could argue that a higher power just wanted to make a point that Hillary Clinton is, you know, basically not who she says she is. I mean, you certainly wouldn't on September 11th, 2016, choose to do a face plant so visibly at a time when many people have legitimate questions about what Hillary was actually doing on the anniversary of September 11th, 2012. What happened at Benghazi? We still don't know what truly happened in Benghazi. We do know that Susan Rice is an inveterate liar, We do know that she went out on 5 talk shows, which is really, it doesn't generally happen that a top official goes on 5 Sunday talk shows and spreads the same line of bullshit of what they tried. It was a video that incited the mob. It had nothing to do, of course, with whatever Obama and Clinton foreign policy was in the Middle East. No. Don't look there. Has nothing to do with the Clinton Global Initiative. Don't look there. Mohammed Morsi was due to speak at the Clinton Global Initiative in September, roughly 10 days after the anniversary of 9/11 in 2012. Don't look into the emails back and forth between Morsi's office. What was he threatening to do if he didn't get a visa to come into the United States? What had he said he was going to do on June 29th, Cairo time, that his first act was going to be to free the blind sheikh, the man who's supposedly responsible for World Trade Center bombing 1 in 1993. Don't look into that. Don't ask why Uma Abedin, the same freaking day that Morsi does this, don't ask why she suddenly gets 4 jobs, 1 for the Clinton Foundation, 1 for the State Department, 1 for Teneo, and 1 for the Clintons personally. Don't go down that. Don't look into the Podesta emails, which now apparently we're not going to ever be able to see again based on the Assange decision, which we'll get to.
Well, they said the DNC, they specifically said that the DNC emails were part of the plea arrangement. Right. They didn't mention the Podesta emails. Have you seen?
Yeah, right. That's my point. So this is your limited hangout. They're going to say, well, actually, we had to get rid of the DNC. Don't ask us what we did with the Podesta emails.
That's been going on for a long time already.
Which I think are far more damaging than what I saw in the DNC emails. When I looked through them at the time, I didn't see any references to the Clinton Foundation, which is ridiculous. We know back in the first Clinton federal campaign in 1992, we know that Hillary Clinton and the Attorney General, Loretta Stink, or whatever her name is, Loretta Lynch. Oh, right. Yeah, it's not Stink. And we know that she and Hillary were on the team, the containment team, for all the scandals. When Jennifer Flowers popped out of the blue with her story, the response of the flailing presidential campaign of Bill Clinton in 92 was, Jesus, we ought to have a task force that identifies any problem area and make sure that we can pre-butt it, rebut it, bury it. And the people who were centrally involved in 1992 in that were Loretta Lynch and Hillary Clinton. So don't tell me that in 2008 and 2016, there weren't similar teams. Just don't even try to tell me that, because in 1992, it was harder to do what you could do in 2008 and 2016 and what you could do in 2024 with the internet. It was much harder to do it then. Okay, so just don't even try to tell me that there aren't emails that address Hillary Clinton's exposure areas in the 2007-8 cycle, and don't tell me when we have all the evidence that's out there in the public domain still about the Clinton Foundation and the fact that it didn't lawfully exist anywhere in the world in 2007 and 8, don't try to tell me that that wasn't a concern area for Hillary Clinton's team, because it had to have been. And there have to be emails to that effect saying, we better hope that this doesn't get touched, or, they probably
Let me pause you
out.
for a second, Charles, because you're on a lot of really important stuff, and I just want to lay a few things down for you. We're going to have a lot of time to discuss this once we go to the First Amendment Forum. People can join us on Odyssey and Substack and Subscribestar and Patreon, but you were mentioning Benghazi and the movie that allegedly, the short film that allegedly started it. There's a lot of very suspicious things about this, including I did at some point go back to some of my Hollywood contacts, and mostly this is a lot of people who have worked in independent film and would know a guy like this. Particularly the time it was made is exactly when I was active in Hollywood. Nobody ever heard of this guy. And the runtime, look at this, 1303. I did not know that. You're also talking about Loretta Lynch, and that's very interesting because she is one of the many people who, here she's writing to Chuck Grassley in February of 2015 on behalf of somebody I've been talking about quite a bit lately, Felix Sater. She's telling the court about how he's provided valuable information and blah, blah, blah. But more importantly, what you're saying about the emails, the DNC emails, And I'm glad to hear you say that you looked through them and didn't see anything important, because I have always believed, well, not always, but for a long time, the DNC emails, that's a red herring. It's the Podesta emails that's a problem for them.
Right.
Everything to do with Seth Rich that we've been told is a lie. And there's no evidence that he's dead. There's no evidence that he was the leaker to Julian Assange. We're going to talk about Julian Assange, and now that he's out, I don't think he's going to be back in action. As you're saying, you know, we can't publish these emails. He's owned by the DOJ now that he's signed this plea agreement. I'm not blaming him. I mean, he's a guy who's got a life. He's got to get out of jail and deal with his kids. But for everybody who thinks this is like some victory for Julian Assange, not really, not in terms of journalism. In terms of getting his life back, it is.
Right. And just, you're right to point out, and we're pressed for time. One thing I'd like to point out is that we are recording this early. And the reason I want to bring that up is that in the next 2 business days, it is certain that there are going to be important Supreme Court rulings coming down, because the end of the term is this Friday. So we don't yet know what the Supremes have decided on the presidential immunity case. And should that decision come down today, I just want people to understand we didn't know about it at the time we did this recording.
Hang on, because it's nighttime here. It's Wednesday, 8 p.m. in New York. It's morning for you.
I understand that, but I'm talking about Thursday and Friday. Thursday and Friday is my point. Okay. We won't know by Thursday and Friday, when people may be watching this, your time. We won't know what actually happened in the Supreme Court. That's one thing I want to point out. And the other thing I do want to mention is that obviously a key topic is the debate. And I've been asked for comments in various media outlets about what I think will happen. And to a certain extent, I've made some predictions, but why predict anything? I mean, it's going to happen shortly. We know that the Biden team has turned down the suggestion that there be a drug test. Now, there's nothing suspicious about that, right? I mean, remember what the whole line of on the Patriot Act and all that stuff is, if you got nothing to hide, you should worry about the Patriot Act.
Exactly.
So where are the people saying that about Joe Biden? If you got nothing to hide, I mean, there's nothing suspicious about Joe Biden disappearing to Camp David, which I would like to point out is not his personal.
Oops, Charles, we got a little internet burp there. Not his personal vacation home, I think.
Our government is not.
Wait, we lost you there. Hang on, you cut out. It's not his personal what?
It's not his personal residence. You there?
You're back. Yeah, you're back. You just cut out for a second.
Yeah, it's not his personal residence. So he's on government property, not using, this isn't the camp. If he's got campaign staff, that's fine. But he's using government property to create a Potemkin president, right? I mean, this is, we have an absolute right to know. And of course, our Washington press corps doesn't give a shit. They just want a chance to go out and be in Camp David. But, if they're actually doping this senile crook up so that he can get through 90 minutes with fake Yapper and Donald Trump, I mean, why would we put up with that? Imagine if the tables were turned and Donald Trump were the president and he had a deficiency. You don't think the Democrats would be saying, well, wait a minute, this is completely wrong. You can't be using medical doctors to make Donald Trump appear strong when he's actually an addled fool. That's exactly what's going on. They are selling us bullshit about Joe Biden using taxpayer money.
Yeah,
on a taxpayer-owned facility. It is outrageous. If they want to do this, he should be at Rehoboth Beach. He should plead that he needs to be with with his family or whatever, or Wilmington. But he should not be at Camp David doing this, in my opinion.
But isn't it also weird that we haven't seen like photos of him waving? Usually they're walking the dog and they see him through the trees at Camp David. He's like somewhere in a he's like Boba Fett floating in that juice.
Right, or Weekend at Bernie's. I mean, Weekend at Joey's. I mean, it's ridiculous. Except he's not at a private residence.
Unbelievable.
So I accept no part of this. And so if he gets out there, I mean, what I will say is, without obviously nobody knows, but he's probably going to see angry Brandon there. Probably with a red background. And anytime Trump gets momentum up in a question or an answer, Tapper's going to cut him off if Dana Bash doesn't. And I mean, this could well Now, there is one hopeful scenario. Who is
There he
that?
is, Charles.
Jesus.
This is the juice. This is when you're sick on Star Wars. They put you in this.
Ugh. Is that Hillary Clinton? Anyway,
I don't know. It's Luke Skywalker.
That'll wake me right up. But anyway, I just think that this is the one hopeful scenario is that fake yapper has been told by Obama or other people, look, you got to nuke Biden. You got to ask some tough questions. Because we did see that courageous representative. We'll see what happens. Anna Paulina, whatever her name is.
Oh, yeah. Luna, Anna Paulina Luna had a whole press conference about inherent contempt. She is fantastic. I don't want to disrespect her. She's married and has kids and everything, but I kind of love her.
A newborn.
Yeah.
But, so to do all this with a newborn is rather, I mean, just in my experience, I'm not actually giving birth, but being around newborns, I mean, that's, particularly your first child, I mean, that is something else. But anyway, so we don't know if that succeeds. We don't know I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm staying at an inequality inn, but I'm not a lawyer. She may be onto something big here. And that's, if they don't respond, it's Friday in America time when that's going to happen. Meanwhile, we know that conflicted John Roberts has indicated there's going to be some sort of a decision on what's happening with the Cannon case, the case before Cannon, or?
Well, they said that they're going to have a bunch of decisions. Well, but they had another thing about Bannon where whatever that abbreviation that I never heard about in Congress before they started talking about it, issued that letter saying that the thing was no good and that they're saying it should have some effect on what's going on with Bannon, but I haven't seen that yet.
Right. So a lot will happen here in the next 48 hours, for sure.
Maybe she'll, I think Anna Paulina Luna has a huge future in government, Charles. She's tough, smart.
Yeah, pretty. Good for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good for her. And, of course, we'll find out, I suppose we'll find out soon who the Trump VP pick is.
Well, so he said that the person is going to be at the debate and that they're going to have Doug Burgum and Vivek Ramaswamy and one other. Was it the brain doctor? What's his name? Ben Carson?
Carson.
Is he the third
Who
one?
knows? Maybe they'll all be there. But Trump
they
is
said
a master.
Those three are going. I like Ben Carson, but I don't think he's a stern enough guy to be president or vice president. Why not make him Surgeon General?
Not attorney.
A
Surgeon General is put him head of the CDC
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point is that. Yeah, exactly. But Trump is a master of the suspenseful announcement. So, who knows? It could well be that they're all there. So far they've said 3 are going to be there. Maybe many there, because remember he's trying to project unanimity.
Yeah.
Mitt Romney notwithstanding. Mitt Romney, what a turd that guy. His middle name is Turd. Because here's a guy who was lucky to get the 2012 nomination, and he did a piss poor job running for president.
Oh,
particularly selecting
Vance
that
is the third guy that they talking about.
Particularly though, I'm talking about 12. It was horrible that Romney selected that douche Paul Ryan to be his VP.
I didn't even remember that.
And so the two of them are out trashing Trump now, and that gives the talking point to Democrats that we Democrats are united. Jimmy Carter's all behind Biden. I'm sure he is. He's probably in the same vegetative state.
Yeah, exactly. Biden. The only person who can speak less than Biden is the 100-year-old Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, I loved the Babylon Bee piece that I don't know that we talked about on the phone. There was a Babylon Bee piece that said that Donald Trump is preparing for this debate by barnstorming the country, talking to dementia patients in old age homes. But
that's funny.
Yeah, it is.
It's actually not funny though, because Joe Biden is a dementia patient, and what they're doing at Camp David is very likely some sort of scientific experiment that no 81-year-old person has ever experienced before. One of the best guesses that I heard about was blood doping, because the way I understand that works is that there's a certain amount, like when you go and get blood drawn, there's a certain amount that they can take that's kind of like okay, and then it takes a certain amount of time for your body to make more blood. So there's only so much blood you can take out of a person in a week.
Yeah,
and the idea is save it up and then inject it back into him so he becomes super energized on that day. But I don't know how long it lasts for. Who knows what happens when you do that to an 80-year-old guy with robot pants who's about to die anyway.
Yeah, it's meet and fitting that a dope is being doped. But enough on. Remember, you're talking to the squeamish guy here. So enough on this blood doming. So, but it's okay. I don't want to pass out.
People want Ken Paxton, Tulsi Gabbard, but I don't think those people are going to the debate. I'm pretty sure it was J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Doug Burgum.
I think it would be pretty funny to have that robot who is was it Craig? What's the comedian's name?
Ferguson?
Yeah, Craig Ferguson, his sidekick, the robot.
I don't remember he had a robot.
Yeah, he's got a gay robot as his sidekick.
I haven't seen the gay robot.
It's pretty funny.
Jeff Peterson, is that the robot? Yeah, look, it is a robot. And it's spelled
pretty
the
funny.
British way, so that sounds like it would be. Is this it?
Yeah, I think so. And it's Craig Ferguson. He is hilarious.
He is
really
actually quite funny. He's actually at his funniest when there's an extremely attractive woman as the guest.
Oh, right. That's the whole thing of the shtick of the show. He has, it's double entendre and many interviews involving these women. And more often than not, these beautiful women step in it and they contribute, maybe unknowingly or maybe wittingly, to the repartee.
Yeah. Well, so Charles, we've got just a couple minutes left before we make our way over to the First Amendment Forum. But, I was in this Felix Sater trial today, and I think there really is a lot of different things that we could look into with him, because this is an extensive thing from Loretta Lynch here. And there's also this photograph, I don't know if you've seen it, of Felix Sater hanging out with Bill Clinton. Are you aware of that photo?
Again, I'm pretty much preoccupied over here on personal matters, so I do read this stuff, but I don't have the bandwidth at the moment to dive deeply into this topic. But I would like to. It's just like I haven't been able to.
Here it is
on this trip.
Here's Felix Sater with Bill Clinton, and also Bill Clinton looks like he's in his 70s. So these guys are what you might call a-hole buddies. They seem to be, and Felix Sater's claim to fame, according to him, is that he got Osama bin Laden's cell phone number, and that was used to bomb caves in Afghanistan, and so he's a hero. I'm not so sure I'm convinced of that. Maybe some of the stuff these idiots did in Afghanistan was a net bad.
Right. Well, again, I that whole area, there are many, warning Bill Robinson, there are many, many red flags in the whole thing. And it's just, I would like the opportunity to pour through documents, and just, I can't do it right now.
No, I got it. Well, anyway, so we've only got about another minute, but there's a ton of stuff that we're going to be discussing in the First Amendment Forum. Charles is back on X, so if people aren't yet following Charles, please get on there. Now, it looks like it's gone up, right? 32K?
Yeah. Again, I'm just in a zone where stuff I'd like to follow, I can't do. But I will definitely. I enjoy Twitter or X or whatever it's called, because you really can get a lot of stuff out into the public domain, and there are some very serious people who do follow you and me on Twitter, on X. I wish there were more of them. And I wish, on the one hand, you could say I wish we had a mainstream press, but the fact that the mainstream press is wholly discredited now creates an opportunity for us and for people like us, which we wouldn't have had. Back when I exposed GE in 2007 and 8, an independent blogger, didn't really have the stand. I had to get my views in the mainstream press in order to have credibility. I succeeded in doing that, but it took a lot of work. Now I don't think you have to do that anymore.
Well, and now I think an argument could be made that the independent, blogosphere, or whatever you want to call it, is perhaps more influential, certainly with the younger generation.
Yeah, there are many ways we could slice and dice it. If you're going to talk about the TikTokers, which we're not aspiring to be, they do wield a lot of influence in social media. But I think the people who go down the track that we follow, that John Solomon follows and others follow, of saying, here's our opinion, but we're not making this shit up out of whole cloth. It's based on this evidence and that evidence and more pieces of evidence. And if people in the audience have conflicting views based on evidence we haven't seen, send us the evidence. We may well adjust our view. Indeed. That's what I expect out of the mainstream press. Instead, they sell hoax after hoax after hoax as truth. And gullible people, which are the majority, sadly, of people on the planet, they're lazy in the main. They just say, it's in the New York Times, so it must be right.
I think it's confirmation bias. People see something there that they like, so they figure, New York Times says it, I'll own this. But with that, Charles, we're going to make our way over to the First Amendment Forum. People can join us on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. And I would remind people, Odyssey has announced July 11th they're going to have the most major upgrade that they've ever done.
Oh, wow.
I presume this is going to be their decentralized, censorship-resistant system, and it's not going to, it's still free for people to subscribe. So get onto odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, even if just for free. You can also sponsor the show for as little as $3 a month on there. Thanks to everybody who is sponsoring the show, and thank you as well to everybody on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth.